Hello and welcome back to Badger Outdoors. This video is the second part, really. It's kind of linked to the first video. Just going to have a bag of knives, basically. Put those out. You can have a look through them, see what you think. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I'm no knife expert. If you want to know what knife to get, then, as I said before, look at survival or bushcraft instructors who use them every day. I don't use mine every day. Some of them I use a lot, some of them I don't particularly, but there you go, it's just my opinion. So it's all done at home because it's a bag of knives and I don't want to take those into the woods. So I hope you enjoy it and I'll see you next time. If you do want a knife that is really good at slicing, then Opinel are an outstanding French company. All their knives are numbered, so I don't know what number it starts at, but this is a number 6, and the number 6 is the first, so it goes up in size, and this is number 6 in the size scale, and from 6 onwards they are locking. So you would normally have a locking mechanism on here, which once you've opened the blade, you then lock the collar and it just locks the knife in that position, and it can also lock it shut as well. But in the UK, to make it legal, I've taken that off, so now it's not a locking blade. But to get around that problem, I fold it up and I've got a little piece of elastic that goes on here, so I've got a hole through with a little piece of elastic, and that just flips over to that position there, and now that just stops the blade coming open in my pocket, which is probably the most important lock for me. But if I'm going to use it, I just drop that down, and now I've got it. It's just under 3 inches, which is why I went for the number 6. This one, this is the Trekker or something a lot like that, so it's painted. A lot of them, most of them aren't painted. You can get walnut and you can get the light coloured one. I forget what the light coloured one's made of. But the great thing about these is the blade is a flat grind, which means it goes from the top of the spine and it's a perfect straight down to a point. There's nothing else to it. It is very good at slicing food. Just fantastic for that, and I don't really care that it doesn't lock because I'm not doing anything major with this thing. You know, I'm just slicing a bit of food, no problem. Lovely knives. A lot of people carry these. This is now just a daily carry. So if I'm going somewhere, not necessarily into town, but if I'm going somewhere where I need it to be a legal carry, because I've got no excuse for it not to be legal, then this is the knife I take. It just sits in my pocket. It's so light. It's a beautiful little thing. So this is the number 6 that I've got. You go up to the number 7 and 8, then you'll be able to lock them, but they're over 3 inches in length. Yeah, lovely knife. Next one up is another folding blade. This one is under 3 inches. It's not locking. It's made by a company called Whitby. It was a recommendation that I saw online. Inside it, you can't see all the way through, so not ideal. If you get water in there, it's going to pool, and you're probably going to get a little bit of rust maybe in there. The blade is a Scandi grind, but it does have a micro bevel or a secondary bevel right at the tip. So it's good for doing wood. Very good general purpose stainless steel knife. It fits beautifully in my hand, just with the 4 fingers there. Yeah, I do really like this knife. This is one of my daily carry that goes in my family. I've got a family everyday carry bag that has picnic blankets and waterproofs and things like that in there, but it's also got a whole load of other stuff, just in case stuff. And one of those is I carry this knife in there, and I've used it many times for doing multiple little jobs. Yeah, Whitby. Really nice British knife making company, Whitby. Next one up is one that I've shown previously. I'm not going to dwell on this for too long. This is a TBS, or the Bushcraft store in the UK. It comes with a fire steel, a lovely little leather sheath, and this is a bushcraft. This is more your bushcraft sort of knife. It is less than 3 inches. I think it's 2.8 inches. It is not locking. It's got a Scandi grind, so that's the best sort of grind if you're going to be working with wood, although some people would say a saber grind maybe, but I think most people are Scandi orientated. and it's, a Scandi grind is where the sides come down from the spine, comes down, and then you get the angle and it comes in, and that goes into a point. That would be a 0 Scandi, but a general and other sorts of Scandis, it would come in, and then you'd have a micro bevel or another angle further down the bottom, just to give it that little bit of strength. But this is a 0 Scandi. It's very nice for doing shavings. I think the spine of it is just under 3 mils, so it's a fairly hefty knife, but that's ideal for doing wood. Yeah, you can do some food with it as well, but a Scandi grind is a bit of a sort of, you're applying pressure. You have to apply a lot more pressure when you're slicing food than if you have this Opinel. You know, that will just slice, because it's a nice thin blade, it will just slice very easy, effortlessly into food, whereas this requires a little bit extra pressure and not particularly no real finesse in doing it. But this is more for wood, really. Yeah, TBS, I do love this knife, and I've used it as often as I can. Okay, next up is another folding blade. This is a Buck knife. Buck do a fixed blade. I got this in Go Outdoors. They do a fixed blade, and then they do 2 folding blades of this style. This is the smaller of the 2 folding blades. It is over 3 inches. It looks like it is 2.5 to maybe 3 mils thick. It is a flat grind, so like the Opinel, it goes from the spine and then it just goes straight down to the point. So this is very, you'd be using this sort of grind if you're doing skinning of animals, if you were, certainly if you were skinning a deer or something, I imagine, not that I have, you would use this sort of blade. It is locking blade as well. It's got a little, I don't know what it's called. Is this called the crown up here? Just gives you some grip on the top, as if you're holding it and you've got your thumb up there. But yeah, they're sort of hunting orientated. It's got a bit of a guard here for your finger. So really sort of hunting orientated knife, but again, see-through. Yeah, very nice knife that's more geared towards the hunting arena. Next one along is one I showed on a previous video. I'm not going to dwell too much. Victorinox. This for me is probably one of the ultimate wild camping knives. If you want one thing that is going to give you a saw blade, a 4-inch saw blade that's going to help get some wood for your wood stove, you've still got a blade in there. This is a 4-inch blade that's 2 mil on the spine. It's a flat grind. It will slice food beautifully. It'll do you some feather sticks. It'll do pretty much everything that you need while camping, really, unless you're going to be splitting wood. This really does cover so many different things. I've just put this is normally the corkscrew for the wine bottle, but in there I've sort of wound a piece of a wax plug for helping start the fire. And then the other modification that I've done to it is on here, instead of the toothpick, I've actually got a ferro rod, a mini ferro rod. The first one of these I broke when I tried using it. I've learnt the technique now. You just got to be careful with them. I think it's called a firefly or fire stick or something like that. But yeah, if you're going to get one knife that's going to be a wild camping knife, then this, I think, the Victorinox are just fantastic. This is the bigger one, so it's not UK legal carry, but you can get, I think it's the camper or the hiker, and they are sub 3-inch blades, and they are not locking. But look them up. There are certainly the options out there on the medium size, this large size, yeah. But if you're going out and you are going camping and you are going to be lighting a fire and prepping food, I think it's perfectly reasonable that you've got something like this. This is a reasonable knife for doing that sort of thing. So yeah, my top wild camping knife, I think. Next one up is this here. This is my Mora knives we'll talk about. I've got some more Mora knives, but this is the smallest Mora knife that I've got. Eldris, I think it's called, the Mora Eldris. Now there are two versions of it. There's a standard Eldris, which has got a certain grind on here, but this one is the light duties Eldris. There's nothing light duties really about it. It just means that the grind, this is a full Scandi grind round here, so good for woodwork. This one I've got on a piece of elastic, and just so the two bits hold together. So this goes in my day bag, which I use if I go out into the woods and I'm looking for fat wood or something like that. This I take this knife. So I mentioned about the grinds difference. This is being the light version, the light duties version. Also, the light duties version doesn't come with a sharpened spine. So the spine of the knife is a lot of knives, like some of the Moras, the cheaper Moras, they have a curved spine at the top, and so you can't strike with a ferro rod as easily and get some good sparks. So you really need a 90-degree spine on there. So I've had to file this down so it gives me some sparks. If you get the standard Eldris, Mora Eldris, then you will get a sharpened spine, but this one doesn't come with it, so you have to put that on yourself. But I really did want the Scandi grind in there, just because I like that and it's easier to keep sharp. This is a more simple grind to keep sharp. Okay, the next knife is, I bought this. This was bought purely based on looks. I went to go outdoors and saw this knife and thought, I was just starting into bushcraft and thought, or getting interested in it, and I thought, that looks pretty, I'm going to have that. It comes in a nice sheath. It's a Norwegian company, either Helle or Helle, depends how you pronounce them. This is their Helle GT 36, which is one of their bigger knives. And you'll find with all Helle knives is they don't really go for a full tang. So this is a stick tang or maybe a rat tang. I've seen different things mentioned. So the blade ends in about here. I think this is called the bolster. It's an aluminium bolster to keep it lightweight. And then the tang goes all the way back down through the blade, and then it comes to a point there, and it's sort of a rivet on there that holds it all together. It's a curly birch handle. It is extremely comfortable. It's good for medium to large hands. It's easily my most comfortable, not easily, but it is certainly my most comfortable knife. It is stainless steel. It's they advertise a 3.2mm blade, but I've measured it at 3mm. It is a stainless steel, but it is a triple laminated steel. So there's two different types of steel. The steel in the middle is a very hard stainless steel, and the steel on the outside is a softer stainless steel. So you have the strength in the middle, but you don't have the brittleness on the outside. So it's a Scandi grind. It's 4.75 inches, or maybe just over that, 4.8 inches. So it's a relatively long bushcrafty knife. They advertise it really as bushcraft stroke hunting, and it's got a little bit of a belly here, so which sort of hints at the hunting heritage. And you've got the finger guard there as well, which you tend to get, I think, with hunting knives, just so that when you're pushing in, your finger's not slipping off, particularly if things are a little bit wet and bloody, and you don't want your fingers slipping on into the blade. Yeah, so this knife, these sort of knives, they don't do, like I say, they don't do full tang. They like the wood in Scandinavia, because if everything gets really cold and you've got cold metal that you're having to grip hold of, it's probably not as nice as having a wooden handle. So they do tend to go for these all wood effects. The company does seem to be really legit, sort of high quality, but it's not a full tang. And you know, over in the States, people really do go for the full tang option because it gives them that strength to split loads of wood. But you know, I've split wood with this, and for everything that I do in the UK, this easily can split the wood. Just don't go for really big. And if you're going to split wood, you take the length of the whole blade, take off an inch at the end, and that's the diameter of the wood that you're going to split, so you've got something to knock at the end. But that would be the absolute maximum for me. And for this, because it's not full tang, I would go for, you know, certainly soft woods, no worries, and even hardwoods I wouldn't be too worried, as long as there weren't too many knots in there, and it wouldn't be big pieces as well. But just for splitting some stuff to get down to some kindling, I've got no issues with this, and this has split a lot of wood. I had it about 2.5 years, I think, and it's sort of the knife that I tend to take out if it's very cold. But cold in the winter, then I'll take this out just because the handle is good. It's good when I've got gloves on. And particularly when I've got gloves on, my finger's not going to slip forward because you don't have the feel. Yeah, it's a very nice knife, but yeah, I would rather have had something with a bit more strength in there. But I've got no issues with it, and I love using it. Yeah, like I say, fits in my hand just beautifully. Next one up is my first Mora. Now the Mora comes in a plastic sheath, which I think is absolutely fine. Moras for me are just awesome. It comes with this little add-on here that slides on, and on here you've got something to sharpen your blade with. It's quite coarse. I wouldn't use this. Whenever I get home from using my blades over 1 or 2 days, all I do is I just use a leather strop with some paste, and I strop my knives to bring them back up. I don't need to use that. You know, that would be if you've got some real nicks and damage to the blade because you haven't been looking after it properly, then you maybe use this as a last resort, but I wouldn't. And then you've got a fire steel. This knife, I used to have a clipper, a Mora clipper. I didn't think it had much of a tang. I'll just get this one out and you can see it. But so the Mora clipper I had, the tang only really came up to here, and I broke it because I abused it. I then had a Mora companion, which I've lost. It's in here somewhere, but I cannot find the thing. It's been brilliant, but I haven't used it for a long time. I haven't seen it for a long time. So this one is the Mora Kansbol. It's one up really from the companion. It's got a nicer handle, feels nicer to hold. Sort of two different types of plastic in here, but it just fits very nicely. I much prefer this handle personally. And you'll see from the blade that it looks like it's a Scandi grind, so it comes down flat and then it goes into its Scandi with a slight micro bevel on there, very small micro bevel on there. But then they put this almost like a flat grind on here on the end, and if you look at the thickness of it, it is 2.4 mils thick down this end, and then that narrows once it starts to narrow there down to 1 mil. Now this is really good for not really good, but it's a general purpose because you can split wood and so on up this end here, and you can make shavings and do feather sticks and things like that because you've got that extra strength with the 2.4 mil, and then you've got the Scandi grind. But if you are splitting wood, you've just got to be very careful of not just what you're splitting and how much force you're putting into splitting it. I've split lots of wood with this thing. It's been absolutely fine, no issues. I'm just cautious with how much force I'm putting down on this end. And I've seen a clip of video of someone breaking the knife by putting a massive piece of wood in, just taking up the whole blade, and they were hitting the handle and they broke it. So you've got to be cautious about what you're going to split on here. But I've had no problems doing that. But this thinner end means that it's good for doing food prep or for doing any finer woodwork, for getting those final sort of fine feather sticks. Not that I'm particularly good at doing feather sticks, but for slicing food, etc. You've got a nice thin blade up the top end here. And I think that this is designed really for doing game skinning maybe. Now I do rabbits. I've done 2 rabbits with this. You don't need a knife to skin a rabbit, you just need a little bit of muscle. But when it comes to actually processing inside and cleaning things out, then this is great. And when I go out doing some rabbit hunting with a mate on his land, then this is the knife I take with me. But a general purpose knife, this is great. This sits in my get your home bag because it gives me the options of doing food up here, and I can do wood down here, and it's really lovely and lightweight. It's a partial tang, so it comes up to about 2/3, I think. But it's a lovely lightweight knife. Absolutely love this. And if you're going to if you want to get a fixed blade knife to supplement your general wild camping and utility, but you want to have a towards the bushcraft end, then I would highly recommend this. I think they're about, I'll put the price up, I think it's about £30–35, whereas you can get a companion at sort of £15–20. So this is yeah, a little bit more expensive, but yeah, it's a very nice knife, stainless steel. So I can put it away in my get your home bag for 6 months, not have to worry about it, and I take it out and just give it a strop and get it back up to standard. Okay, the next Mora is, I moved up from that one and thought I want something that has that extra strength, so that if I go into the forest or somewhere where I need to be able to rely on it and split wood that little bit more often, then I want to get something that's a bit tougher. So you probably know what sort this is. It's got the same little adapter on here for sharpening, but like I say, I don't sharpen with that. I take a DC4 stone with me in my everything's pouch. This one is attached onto, it has an attachment here so you can fit onto some molly webbing, etc. I've just got that just to hang onto a carabiner. And you can get all sorts of different, you can have a leather sheath and all sorts of different options in here. This one I have the little bit that flips over there, because what you can do is put it onto your, if I wanted to, onto my rucksack straps like that, so it's hanging down, and if I needed to I could easily fit it onto there, and then I've got something to stop it dropping out, although it's fairly solid. And this is the Mora Garberg. This is the stainless steel version, so compared to the Kansbol, which I'll get out now again, the handle is similar, but the Garberg has got a different material, a tougher material. I think they claim it's almost indestructible, this material. You'll notice this is a full tang, this one, so the blade comes all the way through, and then you've got an exposed tang here, which I'll talk about in a second. The blade length is the same, they're both about 4.3 inches. The thickness, this one is 2.4 or 2.5 mil thick, I can't remember. This one is 3.2 mil thick, and the Garberg has a high quality of steel. This one you see obviously has got that funky grind on the tip, whereas the Garberg is a standard Scandi grind all the way up, a little bit of a belly here, so certainly deal with skinning larger game if you needed to, not that I ever do. And yeah, a relatively thick blade, so 3.2 mil is just about right. That's sort of getting you into the survival aspects or survival size of blade. The exposed tang I particularly like, so with this you can use your fire steel on here. It's a sharpened tang, much like the blade, the spine here is sharpened. Great for getting your sparks going, even with stainless steel. Makes no difference. It will still do as well as the carbon bladed version, but you can get some your fire going with a ferro rod down here as well. So what I do like, and I'll show a clip of video, is even one-handed I could get a fire going with a bit of char cloth or some flash material, and just standing on the blade, and then using a fire steel single-handed on there to get a fire going. Is there much more to talk about this? No. So this is my winter. So this one you'll see me taking out in the winter. I've had some second winter with it, and I like it because it's stainless steel for the winter, and it drains. It's in here because when I get back from winter wild camping, I've got wet everything. I've got a wet tarp, wet gear, and everything goes in the garage, has to be hung up, and I just don't want to have to, if I forget about this, it's in a leather sheath and it was carbon, then I'm going to end up with a bit of a mess and just damaging the blade when I don't need to. So this is what I use in the wet. And last weekend I was down with my brother on the coast, in and out of boats, etc. So this was the perfect knife to take. Yeah, Mora Garberg, which is the stainless steel one. The next one up from that, well, no, I won't say up from that, because it's not up. This one here is another Garberg. This is the carbon version. Now this one's in a TBS, the bushcraft store sheath. In here, you would normally buy it with a DC4 sharpening stone or a CC4 sharpening stone. I don't put the stones in there. I leave those in another bag. In here, I keep a piece of fat wood, a lovely piece of fat wood, and then I've wrapped that in twine, because twine is a great flash tinder. If you pull all the threads apart, you can really get a fire going. And then outside of that, I've wrapped the whole lot in Gorilla Tape, because that's great just for maintaining, getting that flame going. So here, you know, there's my fire starting. Absolutely all my tinder that I need, and it's all wrapped up, and it just sits inside the sheath there. If I can fit it back in, yeah. And then I've got a ferro rod on there that comes with the sheath, and the sheath itself is their partial one you can get, so it just clips out there, and then the knife comes out. You can get a full cover, and I do have one of those for one of the knives over here that I use it for sometimes. So I love their sheaths, and the knife itself is the carbon. Let's get it out and compare it. Okay, so the difference between these two blades is nothing except for the material. So this one is made with stainless steel. Stainless steel is maybe a little bit more durable, I think, but it doesn't rust. It's got a certain percentage of chromium in it, which means that it's got anti-rust protection in there, so you can trust that if this is wet, you're not going to have too many problems with it. The high carbon steel, this one has a coating on it, and you can tell I haven't used it much because it's still black down on the Scandi grind down here, but it's got a paint coating just to help protect as much as possible from rust. But the other thing, but this is better to keep sharp in the field apparently, but also with a high carbon blade you can use a stone to take small parts of this high carbon blade off that will cause a spark that you can put into some char cloth or something like that. So it's an absolute last ditch way to light a fire with just a stone and with this blade. So what you would do is you would jam this into a log or something like that. I'm not going to do it. I've done it with one of my knives over there, and it actually caused quite a bit of damage, so I'm not going to do it on this one. You jam it into a log, you put your char cloth down here, and then you get your stone and you just strike on there, something like a flint, and the stone is harder than the metal itself, and so it will take some chips off the metal, which will then ignite with the oxygen, and sparks go into your char cloth, and there you got an ember to get your fire going. But that really is a last ditch option, a purchase of the heart and not of the mind. I could this stainless steel one would probably be fine. Okay, the next knife, this is certainly the most expensive knife that I've got. I was looking for a very bushcraft style of knife. I was looking to get an LT Wright GNS with a Scandi grind. I tried 3 times to get it imported. The first 2 times it got to UK customs and got turned around. They've changed their what they'll let into the country recently, and I don't know why they're doing it. This is clearly a bushcraft tool. I then got in contact with LT Wright themselves, and they said they just weren't even bothering with the UK anymore because of this problem. Real shame. Anyway, it meant that I did a lot more research, and it took me another 3 weeks to find a knife that I was interested in. And this is a UK company, very small, local, not a local company, but a UK company. Ben Orford and his wife, I think Louise, who makes the sheaths and for it. It comes with, I don't know what this material is, the sheath, but this one has got a ferro rod built onto the side, a matching ferro rod. I use this one. You can have it as there's a dangler which goes onto here. I've taken that off, and this goes round my neck now on a piece of 4mm elastic with a little toggle on there, so that if it's forced, if there's a lot of pressure put on, that will release, or I can just squeeze it and it will release, just for safety. The knife itself is let me show you. So the Ben Orford there, it's got sort of a dimpling effect on the steel. This is tool steel, so it's 01 tool steel, so it's designed to be sharp, but it's not as durable as 1095 steel, which is a very typical high carbon steel on a lot of knives. This is full zero Scandi grind, so it comes right down to a point there. It is seriously sharp. It arrived. It's a 4-inch blade. It is a 3.5mm thickness on the spine. Like I say, 01 tool steel. Full tang, goes all the way down with some nice orange liners. It's a Mk3 handle, which is obviously black and green. It feels very nice in the hand, not quite as nice as my Helle, or Helle, yeah, I think Helle. Not quite as comfortable as that. A little bit smaller, but a lovely, and particularly if I put my thumb up there, then it feels just right. Really sharp. It's a lovely knife, but this is very much built just for doing wood. I wouldn't be doing anything else with this knife. This is just for wood. And yeah, and in the summer, this is what my standard knife will be. Beautiful bit of kit. I won't say how much it was. It was embarrassingly expensive, but it had all the things that I wanted. I loved the look of it, and yeah, I don't buy flash cars and flash clothes. I buy knives and hammocks. Okay, and so now we're moving into, and I've shown this one before, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But just for completeness, the KaBar BK2. This is a proper survival knife. It's probably up there with, you know, in the top 3 or 5 of everyone's list of a survival knife. I think there is an upgraded version of this. This is the BK2. Like I say, there is now a BK72, which has a tougher steel that holds its I don't know what it holds. It's a tougher steel. This one's now got some damage on here where I've been using the knife itself to get some sparks with a stone. Quite obvious the amount of damage which is on there. This has been modified. It normally comes with a black coating to protect it because it's a 1095 steel, so it will rust if it's left wet or into a wet leather sheath or something like that. But I've taken that off and I just look after it and oil it. It's a saber grind, so saber grind is more of a general purpose grind than wood. I think Scandi is better purely for wood, but as a more of a general knife, then saber grind is what people tend to go for. I should have mentioned, really, in fact, this is a drop point. So you can just see it slowly comes down. So it's got a little bit of a droop down on there to the point, but the point is not in line with the center of the blade itself. Whereas if you go for this knife here, this is a very traditional bushcrafty knife. The point it's more of a spear point. So the drop here, it's not quite a spear point. There's quite a lot of drop. So the point of the blade, if you've lined that all the way back, it's almost central. So if you are making a hole or something like that anyway I don't know how important that is. I haven't really had to do much of that. Yeah, so this is just a jack of all trades, really. It's indestructible, almost indestructible. I don't really take this out into the woods. It's ace at splitting wood, but I would take an axe instead. It's mediocre at feathering a stick. I'd rather take one of these other knives instead. At doing food, it's atrocious. You've got to put a lot of force down just to do a little potato, whereas, you know, my little small knives are effortlessly straight through. So, but if you want a crowbar, if you want to cut a tin of beans open, then this is what you're going to take. I'm not going to talk much more about that. Absolute monster of a knife. I don't know why I bought it. I'm not sure I'm going to be using it much. Yeah, if you're going to buy if you want a wild camping knife, don't buy something like that, and do not buy something like this. This Muela, I think I bought it in my 20s because it says tactical on it and it looks mean. It's a cowhide. It's a Spanish company. It's cowhide sheath. The blade is a 7-inch blade. It is a Tanto style blade, and if you look at the end there, this is what you get. So it's sharpened end down here and down here. It is a hollow grind, so the the blade itself, it comes down and then it goes in, and it's a concave shape, so it's very sharp, and it is very sharp. I imagine this is used for slashing your way through a jungle, although I'd take the right tool for the job, a machete or something like that. It's an American Tanto in that this is flat. If it was a Japanese Tanto, it would have a curve on here. It is a 5.5 mil thickness, like I say, 7 inches long, stainless steel, 440 stainless steel. The tang does come all the way back into here, but it's not a full tang. It's almost a full tang, but it's a covered tang. So it does come all the way back, all the way to the back of the knife, but it's covered with this hard plastic. Yeah, I don't know why I bought it. It's of no use to me. It's of no use for a general purpose camping knife. No use as a bushcraft knife, even a survival knife. I wouldn't take this. This is just for. It's not even a tactical knife. You know, you're not going to defend yourself with this thing. So it's just for slashing your way through stuff. I don't quite get it, but yeah, absolute monster. Yeah, pointless purchase. So if I was going to give you some advice on knives that I would get, I would say that if you're anyone that's doing wild camping, I think this is the way to go. It's got all the little things in there. I'll go for the large one if that's what you want, but if you want something that's going to be UK legal, you have to go for a medium size version. But I think this for me does everything that I want while camping. And then if you want to split wood and get a little bit more into the fixed blade area, then personally I'll go for the Kansbol. It's a lovely light knife. It's got the ability to deal with wood here. It does have the ability to split wood, but you just got to be a little bit careful what you're splitting. And it's got this thinner blade on the end just for doing any finer work that you may want to do for whatever reason in camp, you know, with food or anything else. So that is a really high on my list. The Mora Companion is another very good one, obviously, and there are lots of other ones out there, but this one I think is worth that little bit extra money to go for. But if you do want to go into that survival, have that survival option that, you know what, I want a knife that I really can split wood with and just rely on if I go out on my own, then the Garberg's a great option. You don't need to spend a lot of money on fancy knives like this. That is an extravagance on my part. This is perfectly everything you would ever want from a knife. Whether it's the carbon or the stainless steel. Carbon I'll go for if you can, but if you want your winter knife, or it's very wet where you live, then, or you're down on the coast, then maybe think about the stainless steel version. So that's the video complete, really. That's my selection of knives. Like I say, I'm not an expert, but it might give you something to think about if you are looking at a knife. Particularly in the wild camping area, and maybe delving into a little bit of bushcraft. As I say, look for the experts. I suggest going and looking at the bushcraft instructors or the survival instructors. There are some great channels out there, and just look at the sort of knives that they're using, what their recommendations are in terms of steel, size, thickness, etc. for what the sort of thing that you want to do. And then I don't really think you can go wrong. Don't get distracted and start trying to look at every single steel and every single style. There are so many out there. I think I just found it too overwhelming. It takes a while to learn all the different options that are available, and I'd rather just take someone's advice personally. But there you go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Next video will be out and about in the woods again. Take care. Bye.